This episode of Around the Oval is brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage.
Hey, Ohio State fans, Alex Gleitman here, back with another edition of Around the Oval brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. We are getting ready for a massive Ohio State recruiting weekend. The Buckeyes will welcome in Penn State on Saturday night in the Horseshoe, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. And, Mark, we bring on, first off, let me introduce the man. We bring on Marc Givler to join us to talk about the big recruiting weekend that's coming up. Him and Bill did a great episode of The Gives in the Bank where they did kind of an initial preview list of some of the big official visitors and 2022 guys coming. And we'll touch on those guys in this show. And then you guys took some fan questions, but I wanted to focus and talk about some of the new developments that we've seen to this visitor list, really in the last 24 hours from when we're recording this to when you released your episode, and then touch on some of the big storylines as well. And this is, as we were just discussing before we got on, this is something we can really, probably do a segment on, writing or podcast wise every single day. This is by far going to be the biggest recruiting weekend of the year. The Oregon weekend was a pretty good one. I think we're hoping for a better result for the Buckeyes on the field for this one, but there's no doubt that from, spanning classes 2022 to 2025, this recruiting list is just the creme de la creme in college football. So let's dive into it a little bit. A lot of commits expected to be on campus this weekend, but let's talk about, just real quick. I know you guys touched on him in your episode the other day. But Ernest Greene, you confirmed it first, coming in from California, making his official visit. Let's just go right at it. What are your thoughts on Ernest Greene?
Yeah, I think they can still get him. I know, look, Georgia had a really good visit there, and I think he was there with a lot of other guys. And so I think that was kind of like a big momentum weekend for Georgia when he was there a couple weeks ago. Certainly, you could. I know Bill feels Georgia's got a slight lead right now, and that might be a fair statement to make since they've got their visit in already. And obviously there were some questions about when he would get back, if he would get back. But the fact that he's back now, that's all booked. As long as that plane lands, I think they're gonna have a great chance to regain the lead if they don't have it right now, or if they do, to kind of cement things. So I think they're still the team to beat, really. I mean, if I had to guess right now, I would still guess Ohio State, even though I do think Georgia has really made him think pretty hard about this.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit more confident. I don't know why. I think Ohio State was the leader in the summer, a pretty clear leader. And I honestly thought, he was supposed to come back for, I think it was the Oregon game for his official visit. And I thought he might wrap things up shortly after that. I almost thought it was like a formality to some extent. And then that didn't happen because their game went late on Friday night and they missed their flight and he had to reschedule and he got a chance to go to Georgia and love Georgia. And I'm not denying, that. I just think that Ohio State was in such a good spot and they do so well on these official visits and they're going to roll out the red carpet for Ernest. The environment's going to be the best it's been all season by far at Ohio Stadium. And I just think between that and the time he's going to get to spend with the players, the coaches, former teammate Court Williams, I just think that, I don't know why, I have a feeling, the intel plus my gut feeling that I think Ohio State's going to come out as the leader, and I think they're going to eventually land Ernest Greene. And quite frankly, I think they have to some extent, land Ernest Greene. So that's where I am. It's going to be interesting to see, though, kind of what intel we could gather coming out of this. I know you guys talked about Hero Kanu, and I think we all kind of feel that Ohio State is still in a good spot there. But I wanted to talk about another defensive tackle and a couple other or one other defensive lineman for this list. Right now, Christian Miller is supposed to visit. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't make it up, but he's on the list and he's come to Ohio State a few times before. And at one point we thought maybe he was leaning to Ohio State in early June when he made those back-to-back visits to work out with Larry Johnson and earn his offer. And USC looked like they were going to be the leader for a while, but I think Clay Helton getting the axe is probably very helpful for Ohio State. What's not helpful is that maybe Georgia is going to take him. And I think I personally think that's where he's going to end up, but wanted to get your thoughts on Miller. Could Ohio State steal this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think they could. I just I don't know how far I want to go with this guy because it can change so quickly with him. He's such a big personality. I think he gets really excited on these visits. I think he's a guy who again gets very excited, amped up on these trips and kind of enjoys himself. And so sometimes things change there when he goes from one place to another. So I do think USC is in deep trouble at that, but they're essentially out at this point. I do think it's Ohio State or Georgia. I think he's going to end up at Georgia, but could Georgia fill up? I mean, you're looking at kind of looking at who they're recruiting along the defensive line. They're in on not that Christian's not a phenomenal player, but he's one of maybe 5 or 6 guys they're in on right now on that defensive front. So I think a domino or two could fall that would maybe help Ohio State there, pull them away from Georgia. But I guess better shape than they were coming out of that USC visit when he was pretty much going to USC. So we'll see what happens here if he shows up this weekend and where things go. And it's kind of interesting, I think, with the way things have kind of fallen apart with Chris McClellan, which I think is really surprising, kind of how that went. And I guess that's not over yet, but just kind of how the direction that's been moving has been surprising to me. That kind of opens things back up, I think, for him, in terms of, Ohio State's maybe prioritizing him more. I think, if Ohio State knew they had Hero Kanu and Chris McClellan in the bag right now, they may have been done at defensive tackle. So I think now if you don't think they're getting McClellan, but even if, so him and Kanu would have to be, I guess, the next 2 up for sure.
Yeah, that one's going to be interesting to follow. I think for me, let's see if he gets on campus first, and then we'll kind of take it from there. But until he signs somewhere, I'm just not fully, I'm not fully buying he's going anywhere. That's just been one of those up and down ones. And talk about one where I think you've been pretty steady, honestly. Got to tip my cap to you. I've been feeling confident, feeling negative, feeling confident again, is Amari Board from Texas. I think we're expecting him in now. I'll let you go first. I mean, getting him on campus though is huge. I don't think anyone could deny that, and gives Ohio State a great opportunity to make a nice little run at wrapping this one up. What are your thoughts on Amari Board?
That was so we took a listener question the other day or yesterday, I guess that was. And, it was a who's in and who's out type of game with a bunch of people. And Amari was the first one. And that was maybe the toughest one I've ever done, because I actually, if you make me pick like one school, I might be inclined to pick Ohio State still, even after the Kenyatta Jackson commitment, even though I've never been super comfortable that both of them are going to end up at the same place. But in a who's in, who's out type of scenario, I'm like, okay, I get all like 7 other teams I keep hearing linked to Amari or Ohio State. I'm going to take the field. But if he shows up this weekend, that's very interesting. I think there's a lot of people who kind of totally wrote him off after Kenyatta Jackson committed. I of course, was a little bit hesitant to put him in the class at that point as well. But he shows up this weekend. They're right there. And I think, again, eventually they're going to have to turn somebody away here. They're not going to be able to get all the guys they would like to get. But we'll see this weekend. I think they're still in it. I thought their demise was kind of exaggerated there over the summer. And we'll see if he shows up.
Yeah, I think getting him to show up is going to be big. And I've heard also the Kenyatta Jackson stuff where, it was more about Oklahoma, like, hey, if one goes to Oklahoma, the other's not. And I don't know if that was more about room in Oklahoma's class or whatnot. I can't see a guy like Amari Board where he shouldn't be scared off by Kenyatta Jackson. I think there's a place for both of them in an Ohio State room that, in my opinion, is thin at defensive end. You got some upperclassmen right now. Even if Tyler Friday and Javonte Jean-Baptiste come back next year, those guys, that's their last year no matter what. So I think you see how Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau have cracked the rotation in year one. I think that's certainly possible for both the Kenyatta Jackson and Amari Abor next year as well. And I think that Larry Johnson is going to showcase to him and his family on this visit, if it happens, that's exactly the plan. And kind of, I would trust Larry Johnson to qualm any concerns of, hey, you guys might have, a Caden Curry and a Kenyatta Jackson. where do I fit in? I don't want to go to the same school as those guys. So I think if anyone's the one to kind of squash that, it's Larry Johnson. So I think this is a big visit. I think he's got to show up, and I think, again, we see him show up and go from there. So talk about a guy, though, who we need to see show up, rumored to be coming, and we'll see if he actually steps foot in Columbus this weekend, is Shamar Stewart, who did kind of make somewhat of a surprise visit this summer on his own dime to Ohio State. And I've honestly personally heard some positive things out of some people in Florida. I think Miami is like plunging way down in this one. I don't think that there's a lot of confidence in the future of that program moving forward. I would say maybe like a Georgia or a Texas A&M might be the team to beat right now, but I think the fact that he might be open to leaving the state of Miami or state of Florida, you might as well say state of Miami, state of Florida opens the door to some extent for Ohio State if they can get him on campus. I'm still going to say ultra long shot, but wanted to know your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, yeah, I mean, there's a long process that has to happen for Ohio State to pull this one off. And obviously the official visits, got to be a part of that process. I think, again, I agree with you. Georgia, Texas A&M right now. I know some people would say A&M, some people Georgia. I'm kind of in the Georgia boat right now. I think that's maybe the team that set the bar so far. What's fascinating to me about this is Georgia, Ohio State, and Texas A&M are all recruiting Shamar, Eni White, Amari Abor. So when you essentially have 3 5-star type of defensive ends with, I don't want to say they're the top 3 for all 3 of those guys, but all 3 schools are very much in that top 4 or 5-ish for all 3 of those guys. So they're not all going to go to A&M. They're not all going to go to Ohio State, and they're not all going to go to Georgia. So this is going to be a game of dominoes. I mean, this is going to be very interesting. I think there's a chance, probably not so much with Shamar, but I think the other 2 could get left out of, let's say, Georgia or Ohio State. Let's say Ohio State gets Caden Curry and Amari Abor. That could maybe push Eni White somewhere else. Let's say, if Georgia was able to get Michael Williams to flip and then maybe get Shamar Stewart, that could push Eni White to A&M or Ohio State. I mean, so there is so much going on here that just goes beyond just what, where Shamar is leaning right now. There's so many other things in play with some of these defensive ends. But yeah, I maybe Ohio State's running 3rd now. Maybe I think that's the most optimistic. I think that's about as optimistic as you can be right now going into this visit, but he's coming up, or supposedly, we'll see, we'll see. And if he makes it, and, I would almost throw this back to you. Is this too early to get him? Cause I'm pretty sure he's doing the February thing. I believe that's what he's said he is doing. He would like to commit in February. Is this too soon? Do you not actually want him coming? I know it's a great game. It's their big recruiting weekend, but do you want him all to yourself on like the second weekend in January? I mean, I don't know.
I defer to Ryan Day and Mark Pantoni on that one. I think they know best, but I think, to me, it's like, if you have the opportunity to bring them up, like, you get them up, because you don't know if that opportunity is going to exist in 2 days, let alone 2 months. So that's my theory. You still have the in-home. I don't know. He got here in the summer. Maybe there's a way he could get up again. I think, like, with a guy like that, if you have the opportunity to bring him up and he's willing and he's available, you just do it, and you live with whatever else comes from that. Because at the end of the day, is it really going to matter? Is it going to matter that I do think the timing sometimes does matter, but, like, if Ohio State's the school for him, it shouldn't matter if he visits now or in January. They maybe then do have to be smart about when they use their in-home. I think that could be strategic if he does show up this weekend. So we'll see, and we'll go from there. The last guy, because you guys went in length on Zion Branch and Xavier Wampa. But the last guy I want to talk about in 2022 before we move on to the next class is Jimmy Rolder, linebacker from Chicago Marist, Illinois baseball commit. Didn't really have offers like 3 weeks ago, and now has like 12 offers, including Ohio State, which was early last week. We were all over that on Buckeye Scoop before it happened, as it happened. And we were, I believe, maybe the first to confirm that he would be at Ohio State this weekend as well. which I think is big, and it's an unofficial visit. So that means they have an official visit in their pocket. For me, just from what I know, this kid is, like, think about like if you're just starting the process. A lot of these kids started that like a year ago, 2 years ago. Jimmy Rolder's starting it now. So I don't know if he's going to sign in December. I don't know if he's going to wait till February, but ultimately he's gone to Michigan last week. He's been to Iowa. He's been to Illinois. He's been to Minnesota. And these have all been unofficial visits. He's getting his first feel of all these schools. And that's what he's going to get this weekend at Ohio State. And then I think he'd like to schedule visits in November and December for official visits. And then maybe make a decision by signing day in December, maybe wait. But either way, I think this is a kid who's going to stay in the Midwest. If Notre Dame jumps into it, I think that they're going to be a really interesting choice. But Ohio State, Michigan, Iowa, Illinois, I think are probably the schools you would probably put out front right now. And Ohio State's going to get their first crack at him this weekend. So, Mark, what do you think about Jimmy Rolder and the Buckeyes' chances there? I know it's so new that, it's really just kind of a lot of guesswork to some extent, educated guesswork right now. But where are you feeling right now about Ohio State and Jimmy Rolder?
Yeah, I think this is a good sign that obviously the offer came very recently, and he immediately is making an effort to get to Columbus. That's obviously a good sign. I think they're gonna be able to present a pretty good depth chart situation to him. I agree with you. I'm getting up to speed on this kid as quickly as possible, but the book seems to be that he's a Big Ten kid, Midwest kid. So probably, again, we're not talking, it's a short, it's a 45-minute flight. It's I've made that drive about 5.5 hours. It's not a bad drive. So they got some geography going there. What I think about this weekend is it's kind of a two-way interview. I think, obviously Jimmy's going to have to feel out Ohio State and kind of get a sense for the place, get a sense for the coaches. And I think Ohio State's gonna have to get a sense for him. There's only so much you can learn just kind of texting back and forth with a kid, or, so I think everyone's kind of just quickly trying to get up to speed on each other right now. And then you get the official later. But yeah, I think it makes sense. I got people telling me it might be tough to pry him away from Illinois with some of the ties there, but we'll see what happens. I think I don't want to sound arrogant, but it is, if it comes down to Ohio State and Illinois, I still like Ohio State. I know with ties and baseball and everything, I still like Ohio State if that's what ultimately plays out.
Yeah, his dad played for Illinois, and so that's obviously a big deal. And he's from Chicago, and he's committed to them for baseball. And I get that, but from what I understand, from what I've been told, this will be a football decision. And to your point, again, not to sound arrogant, but what if you want to make the NFL? Who's gonna better prepare you for that? If you want to argue Iowa and Ohio State, fine. If you want to argue Michigan and Ohio State, fine. We could have that argument, but if those are fair arguments, I know Illinois is rebuilding, and there's a chance to play early there and kind of be a hometown hero. And plenty of guys. Whitney Merciless is on like a 14-year NFL career, and he went to Illinois, so it's possible. But I just think right now, where both programs are, and the need at linebacker for Ohio State, this isn't like wide receiver where he's walking into a room that's like 8 deep of 5 stars. There's an opportunity there, so it will be interesting to see. And I do think Ohio State that offer caught his eye. No disrespect to Purdue or some of these other schools that kind of came into it. I'm not sure. Maybe he's visiting and he's looking, but I think when Ohio State came in, that one caught his eye. So we'll see how this weekend goes. And, hopefully an official visit is then scheduled for November. He's still in the playoffs. They play Friday night. So we'll see how that goes as well. But moving on and, talking 2023, pair of running backs might be coming up. Richard Young from Florida. And I think we all, you guys talked about it the other day, where we all think Ohio State is the leader right now, but it's kind of early, and Alabama is not going to be easy to beat out there. But the interesting name that, we believe is coming up is Justice Haynes from Georgia. And that's a name that I don't think enough people are talking about when it comes to Ohio State running back recruiting. I'm not sure I personally see Richard Young and Justice Haynes both going to the same school. But for some reason, if Richard Young starts to go toward Alabama, I know Ohio State's been recruiting Justice Haynes just as hard as they would any other number 1 target on their board. And I know Notre Dame and a few other programs are in this one for sure. But What do you know about Justice Haynes and where Ohio State stands in that one?
Yeah, I think you put it kind of perfectly there. I think he's a name that probably should be getting a little more traction with people. Like that's kind of our fault. I don't think it's anyone else's fault. I think the media has to kind of take the blame for this. I think we haven't maybe thrown him into the discussion the way we did maybe with like a Trayon Webb early in the process, where we were kind of talking about, him possibly with Richard. And I think it's going to have to end up being a 2-back class. I think when you look at the numbers on the roster right now, and when you look at who may have to, who may be gone by the time the 2023 class reports, I think, for insurance purposes, I think they are going to have to take a second back. Now, will Justice Haynes and Richard Young want to be in the same class? I don't know. I don't get the sense Richard Young much cares. I don't know enough about Justice personally to give you any insight onto that either way. But knowing Richard quite a bit, I think Richard's probably not too worried about that. So they'll try and make it happen, I think, if they can. And yeah, I think Ohio State's probably among those maybe 3 or 4 schools to watch with Haynes. He's been up already. Another return visit. I don't think they're super tight or anything like that, but you start to talk about, if you can get an AJ Harris, who's, essentially a Georgia kid. I think those two do know each other. I think, you're working on some other guys down that way. That could maybe help you build some momentum there. But, it looks like, he's a kid that looks like he's genuinely looking at everybody. I mean, I think it's Clemson, I think maybe in there, but I know like he's been up to Notre Dame. Like he's been very involved with Notre Dame. So he's looking at he's looking at multiple schools in the Midwest. So it's not one of those situations where it's 6 SEC schools and Ohio State.
Yeah. And, you can't count out Georgia, obviously. I mean, home state school and just the way they produce running backs. I know that they're in it, but I don't know. Just talking to Justice, he almost seems like same high school as Steel Chambers. So there is familiarity there for Ohio State, which I think is important to note. And he does seem like a Notre Dame kid to me for some reason, just in my interactions with him. And I know he's had a couple of really good visits there. So we'll see. But I agree. The openness to go into the Midwest is certainly a good thing for Ohio State. Let's talk now about receivers. We just got news right before we came on here that Carnell Tate, IMG receiver, originally Chicago native, went to Marist with Jimmy Rolder before he went to IMG. He will be back at Ohio State this weekend. He also told me he's still planning. He was supposed to come for the Michigan State game. He's still planning to do that. We'll see what happens there. Things change all the time. But let's talk about getting Carnell Tate back on campus this weekend. We've all agreed that it's been a very tight race between Ohio State and Notre Dame. Notre Dame kind of is cautiously optimistic. Ohio State, I think, is cautiously optimistic. What are your thoughts on Carnell Tate coming back this weekend?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm still rolling with Ohio State on that one. I think Notre Dame, probably was the cause of the delay if I had to guess. But I also think there is something to it when we've seen this with AJ Harris, we've seen this with a few other guys of it all sounds great to commit, in a September or October of your junior year. And then you realize, boy, I could just wait 2 more months and then go visit like the top 5 programs in the country for games and get free tickets. And so I think a lot of kids are realizing, well, maybe a December or a January commitment's a lot more sensible than an October commitment, because if they don't want to create a circus with committing and then taking visits for games. So I think, probably some of that going on as well. But yeah, I like Ohio. I think it's great news. First of all, I think it's phenomenal news. And look, if he comes back from Michigan State too, it's like, wow. So, I still like him. I think this is great for them. I think they're trying to build this 23 class, and they're going to have a lot of their key guys on campus. So to have him, back around Sonny Styles, back around some of these other guys, I don't think you can I don't think you can really overstate that. I think it's very important.
Yeah, I do too. Agree with everything you said. I like Ohio State here. And getting him would kind of, there's 2 other, it's interesting. There's 2 other receivers in the 2023 class that we have scheduled to come. One, Zachariah Branch, brother of Zion Branch. And I think we both agree if they get Zion, they probably get Zachariah. And so you could have Carnell Tate, Zachariah Branch in the slot, basically. And then you're maybe looking at like getting 1 more receiver in that class. And a guy I think that they need to look at closer is another guy that's coming, and that's Anthony Brown, currently committed to Minnesota. We'll see if he does show up this weekend, because that would be kind of a big deal. He's pretty friendly with CJ Hicks and a few other guys in Ohio that are tied to Ohio State. He worked out at multiple camps this summer, and it seemed like Ohio State is just kind of was slow playing him, I guess. And he was sick of waiting and took the Minnesota offer where his brother is. And I think if Ohio State came in, though, I think he would take it. And I'll put you on the hot seat to some extent. Signing day, December 2023, is Anthony Brown signing with Ohio State?
I would have to probably, God, I almost want to say yes, because why is Ohio State still recruiting him? It's kind of one of those, they don't, when they do this with in-state guys, man, they freaking offer and take them. It's what happens. I'm already getting, if he shows up, if this continues to go in that direction where he's now a committed player elsewhere, but he's still showing up for, at the home school or whatever, that's a good sign to me. I think here's another thing. I think, I know they want to take 3 receivers every year, but as we saw with kind of the exodus here this offseason, it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you're going to have some transfers, some attrition, and you're going to have to adjust your numbers. I could see 23 blossoming into a 4 receiver class, because I think you're going to, obviously they're below their numbers right now. They want, and I shouldn't say need, they want more receivers in the room than what they have right now. And you're already, you're going to lose Olave. You're going to lose Garrett Wilson, spoiler alert. Jackson Smith and Jigba's looking like a 3 and done to me. You could squeeze 4 in here. My only question with Anthony, first of all, I think he's more than good enough to play. I think he's absolutely, I would take him. If I was Brian Hartline, I would take Anthony Brown. I know I'm not. So, but I don't think Brian Hartline needs my advice, but I would personally probably take Anthony Brown. But can he and Zachariah Branch coexist, or are they the same guy? That's kind of my question. And so obviously if Zachariah Branch doesn't end up at Ohio State, it's kind of easy to me that they will pursue Anthony Brown and probably get Anthony Brown. If Branch ends up committing to Ohio State, does that hurt Anthony at all? Or can you take those two, someone like Carnell Tate, and then maybe like another 6'1", 6'2" outside type of guy, and maybe just take 4? But that's kind of my question, is how Brown and Branch would fit together.
Yeah, I think he could play outside. I'm going to defer to you guys on this one, but I don't know. They just seemed very interested this summer, and they were kind of just telling him to be patient and wait, and they liked him. And I mean, I think it was pretty clear they were just kind of stalling on that one, but yeah, I think he'd be a good fit, and I think he could play at Ohio State. So
they gave him like that like Terry McLaurin, like,
yes,
go do this and then come back, and then go do this and come back. And now Terry was doing that going into his senior year, so you didn't really have the time to play stall ball on Terry, but it did feel like that as someone who watched Terry do all the camp stuff a few years ago and then was there for all the Anthony Brown camps. And yeah, I mean, you made a good point. Like, Anthony's not very big, but he plays outside at Springfield. Now that's a different world playing it in high school, but he's not just a gadget player. He does play outside and makes a ton of play. He's, if anyone's a fan of high school football in Ohio, like Central Ohio people, because Springfield's not too far from Columbus, that's worth the price of admission. He's an exciting high school football player.
Yeah, special teams too is something he excels in, and that adds a little bit more to his value to Ohio State. So yeah, definitely something to look at. There's a number of great targets. We'll talk about them throughout the week. I know in my A deck, I'm going to break down pretty much where Ohio State stands with a lot of these guys, in my opinion, to my knowledge. But let's talk about a couple more guys. Let's go over to defense. A couple of big time linebackers in 2023. Troy Bowles coming in from Florida. Jaden Osbery coming in from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, second time in a few months on his own dime. I think that's something to look at. 2 potential 5-star guys at a big position of need. What are your thoughts, Mark, on Troy Bowles and Jaden Osbery?
Yeah, saw them both at camp in the summer. Bowles, I thought was phenomenal. He's kind of a new age. He's not, he's not gonna be 6'3", 250, but I mean, my gosh, I mean, he's got a lot of Jerome Baker in him, I think. Really, really good player. Um, I looks tough. Watch. I'm actually supposed to see him pretty soon. I'll kind of keep that a little quiet. I'm supposed to go see him here soon. But like the toughness on film, hope that translates to live. But I think Ohio State's got a great shot with Bowles. Think they're the leader. Gosh, I don't know that he'd commit this early, but I think we'll see. I mean, gosh, I guess if there's a 2023 off the radar commitment watch, maybe it is him. I think they're in really good shape there. Jade Elsberry is interesting to me because we were told over the summer that he's probably not going to LSU, which is kind of shocking. He's a Louisiana guy. I think it's his mom that works at the school. So one of the parents either works at the school or worked at the school. And so there's like all these connections to LSU there. And I was told he's not going there, but we'll see. Now, since that's happened, Ed Orgeron is no longer going to be there. So I think you almost have to
reset it.
Yeah, like acknowledge that you've heard that, but also kind of keep an open mind to, well, let's just see what they do with the new hire and everything else. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it was not a kid that it was a kid that I thought would be dead set maybe on going to LSU, and it doesn't feel like it's that way.
Yeah, I think, for me at least, getting again 2 visits on his own dime in such a short time span is huge. I think LSU being up in the air is big for now. I mean, I guess if they hire the right guy, that could be bad for everyone else. But I'm not ready to call Ohio State a leader or anything. But I think that they're definitely in top consideration, so that's good. I'll say confidently, I think that Ohio State leads for Troy Bowles. I got the chance to catch up with him at the Ohio State Rutgers game in New Jersey. He was there as a Rutgers guest. His brother is a walk-on for Rutgers, freshman. But I think Ohio State is firmly in the driver's seat. If you wanted to even ask me who would be second, I couldn't even tell you. It might honestly be Rutgers. I just think Ohio State's that far ahead. And to your point, Mark, I always thought maybe he'd wait till like February or so to commit, maybe the spring. But I'm kind of thinking, I don't know. He's the type of kid. I think if like his dad and his family's on board, and I think they have him looking at this very smartly. And if he just like knows Ohio State is the place he wants to go, then I wouldn't be shocked if he locked that in. So we'll see. I think with a really good visit, and if they push for that, that could happen. So,
and Todd was up on the visit in the summer.
Yep.
So, and was very attentive to all the surroundings. And I know was spending a lot of time with some of the staff while Troy was camping. So I think, obviously with his status as an NFL coach right now, I wouldn't put any concern about, his lack of knowledge of Ohio State or anything like that. I think he's done his homework here.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll wrap 2023 up with just a pair of defensive backs, Christian Gray, Elliott Washington. Both guys came up this summer. Elliott Washington from Florida, Christian Gray from St. Louis. Both have offers from Ohio State. What are your thoughts on those two guys?
Saw them both this summer. I've been a big Christian Gray fan for a long time. I saw him very early at an Under Armour camp, and he was arguably the best corner there. I think it was going into his sophomore year. So just looks like another J.K. Johnson, really. I mean, it's just like another 6'1" freak athlete that can run and cover, and just so I really like him. I think Ohio State's got a great chance. Again, I think the wild card is going to be they've taken so many defensive backs the last 2 years, and obviously AJ Harris is their top target right now. And if they're able to land AJ Harris in December or January, how many more are they going to take? I would assume they will take at least another one to go with him, but I don't think this is going to be one of those DB classes where they're taking 6 defensive backs again. I think they've already done that the last 2 years, and so they're going to be very selective. But Elliot Washington, not to downplay Elliot either. I saw him at camp. He was tremendous. He earned an offer and did everything he needed to do. Another great looking kid, physically can run. All these guys are in that, out of that Sean Wade, Jeff Okuda, Denzel Burke lab of, 6 foot corners that can run. And, again, the interest coming back up again. I always point to those early, if you look at the 5-star type of guys they've pulled from out of state over the years, the Jeff Okudas of the world, the Von Bells of the world, all those guys made early unofficial visits, and it set the table for them. And so these guys are making, their return or on early unofficial visits. So I think they're in really good shape for both. It's just a matter of, again, if that AJ Harris domino falls in Ohio State's direction, how does that affect their corner recruiting from there?
Yeah, I think, and, I wouldn't be shocked if they looked at a couple of these guys as safeties, maybe.
Especially Elliott, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And there's another kid in Ethan Nation who they liked a lot this summer that might be coming up as well. They're working on that. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it or not. By the time this video releases, we might know, and we'll definitely post it on the site as soon as we do find out. But there's a whole slew of defensive backs in that class that I think they're in really good shape for right now, at least in those top 2 to 4 schools that these kids are looking at. And it's early, but I think if they push for guys like Christian Gray or Elliot Washington, that they could be in a good spot to land them. I think AJ Harris is definitely priority number 1, and then you kind of let the dominoes go from there. Sonny Styles, I know we list him as a safety, but he's kind of as you mentioned, I like that defensive weapon. Yeah. I think he is just more linebacker than anything, probably a linebacker who can line up on the edge and blitz, a linebacker who could drop in coverage. As you guys talked about, him and CJ Hicks are basically like having 2 Darren Lees on the field to some extent. So that could be pretty exciting, but I think these other guys are more true defensive backs, cornerback, safeties, nickels. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Last thing we will touch on is 2024. We're not going to go too deep into it. It's super early, but there is a quarterback coming up from the state of Florida. He earned an offer at Ohio State camp this summer. So again, a kid who's making 2 visits to Ohio State on his own dime. Jaden Davis is the guy everyone talks about from South Carolina, number 1 player in the class by 24/7's early rankings. I think a lot of people might have him close to up there, if not number 1 overall. He's definitely Ohio State's number 1 quarterback target, and he's been to Ohio State a number of times and may be back this weekend. So be on the lookout for an update there. But there's a kid from South Florida, and I don't know how to pronounce his name specifically. We're talking about it before the show, but it's Adrian. I'm going to go with Posse, Posse. And Mark, I mean, I think it's super early and they can kind of recruit everyone really hard. I think we all know Jaden Davis right now is probably their number 1 target, and he probably is favoring Ohio State. But, someone brought it up to me on the board, and this is why I wanted to talk about it. Let's just say this kid wanted to commit. Do you think Ohio State would take him? Do you think he's number 2 on their board behind Jaden Davis? I think it's so early to say that, but he does have an offer that he worked out in front of them, and he does have an offer. I don't know. How do you feel about him? I think if he tried to commit, personally, for me, I think they might try to hold him off a little bit and talk about developing the relationship and not rushing into things. And that's great, but let's go from there. But I don't know. How do you feel about him?
Well, I watched him as a player. He's a tremendous talent. Was really impressive at the camp. Good size, great arm. Apparently fairly mobile. It's not really something they showcase at a camp, but his coach was there, said he can run a little bit. So I like all that. I don't like the idea of taking a 2024 quarterback from Florida right today. I would kind of maybe want that 12 months from now, 6 months from now. The other thing I would do if he tried to commit is I would step out. If I was Ryan Day, I would step outside the room I said, give me 90 seconds, step outside the room, call Jaden Davis and see if Jaden Davis wanted to reclassify to 2023. That's what I would do. And then if Jaden said, actually, yes, coach, I will do that, then I would go back in and take the commitment. And if he said, no, I'm going to stay at 2024, then I'd have to hold him off.
I'm on board with that strategy. I think that's a good one, but Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't think he's going to be ready to commit anyway, so I think it's a moot point. But it's hard to turn away a talent like that. But I like that strategy of calling Jaden up and saying, "Hold on one second, Adrian. We'll call you back." But yeah, it's going to be a great weekend at Ohio State. We're going to be all over it on Buckeye Scoop. If you're not a subscriber, there's probably no better time than now with the team making a playoff run and a lot of the inside scoop we have on that and great coverage we have on that run, but more so this weekend specifically and all the recruiting fallout that's going to come out of it, both positive, maybe some the other way. We have about, I don't know, I'm looking at this now, at least 50 names of quality kids that, that Ohio State would probably take today if they wanted to commit. And there's going to be more names added to this list as we get closer to kickoff. So be sure to stay tuned to Buckeye Scoop. Look out for my A-Deck. Look out for Mark and Bill stuff and Mick and Dom as well covering recruiting. And we will see you next week on the show. Thanks for listening.
This episode of Around the Oval was brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. If you've been thinking about refinancing or buying a house, check out our sponsor, Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. They offer low rates for refinancing and home purchase loans, including first-time home buyer programs, down payment assistance, and cash-out home equity loans. Check out revolutionmortgage.com/tpennington.